Hi, everyone. I really want to welcome you here to the Virtual World Education Consortium and our expert series. Today we have Rand Hinrichs here, who's presenting on the Cyber Exit project, the uh, Cyber Ed in a Box classroom project, and in addition, really about navigating the digital future and where we are. And Rand is the author of the book Engaging the Avatar, New Frontiers and Immersive Education, as well as running the company 2B3D, which does a lot of immersive builds for educational games and things like that in world, changing the lives of veterans and other groups. And just want to really welcome him here today. We've been collaborating on the CyberX project that we'll be touring a little later today. And at this point, just thanks so much, Rand, for being here. I'm really glad you're able to share with our group.
It's a total pleasure to be here, and I know you more as Eric, so I'll probably end up calling you Eric the whole time.
That's good.
I would like to take you guys on a little journey, a little history journey first. I've been in virtual worlds for many years, not as long as the history, but I'm going to start a slideshow that's going to advance every 5 seconds so that we can get through the history very quickly. And then I'm going to talk about what we haven't been able to achieve yet in virtual worlds. And then we're going to take a tour over to the project that I'm currently working on, Cyber Ed in a Box. So getting this show started, I want you to remember Tim Berners-Lee told us that the internet was a place that was going to be a place of imagination. It's really become a place of replacement, where we replaced applications and hardware and software with other things. I went to my 50-year reunion last year, and what it did is it reminded me of where we've come from. The Sensorama in 1956 with smell technology, these virtual head displays that were being played with in 1968, the famous Muds and Moos of 1975, all text-based. Then came Tron, upping the game in digital CGI, the idea of games like Habitat in 1986, and then the famous Snow Crash book that really set everybody ablaze with what this alpha world could really look like. So in 95, we started to do content creation today, and my co-author of the Oxford Handbook of Virtual Reality started doing conferences, and I started to take advantage of Second Life and open source in order to be able to start creating some immersive environments. Started a class in 2008, which some of the people are here, have created ideas about how to look at virtual worlds from a different perspective. And here we are now in 2010 and 24 with all sorts of Oculus Rift. But what can't we do? Every object is not digital yet, and IoT is not everywhere on the planet. We can compute on a lot of surfaces, but not on any surfaces. So cybersecurity is the area that I've moved into because I was really interested in these worlds being secure. Sure, we've got ChatGPT and we've got Zoom, but we really don't have face-to-face communication yet across multiple screens. We have sensors in some things, but we don't have them in everything. And sensors are our IoT freedom. It's true that integration is widespread and it's moving around from fairly quickly. It's also with Neuralink and Elon Musk becoming part of the brain-computer interfaces, which I'm now studying in my PhD at the University of Idaho. We're able to reach into the technology and interact with the technology with our hands and our body. This all is technology that is from Microsoft. Avatars becoming more real, brain-computer interface. This is probably going to become more dominant in our next generation of technology as we look for faster ways to compute. So we're moving our virtual bodies, and our bodies are responding to all sorts of technology from wearable devices to integrated devices into our human body. We can actually use our artificial limbs and reach into data so we can do some of the work that we're doing with post-traumatic stress disorder and phantom limb syndrome. Avatars are becoming quite sensational. The ones that I've seen at Meta lately aren't the ones that I'm expecting to see next, but what we're starting to see with CGI and the next generation of Avatar production is going to look exactly like you. And with the implantation of sensors inside of your human body, it's going to even be more realistic. Already we have technology that's watching you and determining what your mood is. You see this with artificial intelligence right now that predicts what your mood is going to be and starts presenting marketing information that's based on your mood. So, with that camera that's been pointed at you for a long time, and the generation of cameras that are both going to be looking at you from the outside and the inside, you're going to be able to see this whole awareness of mood and mood interaction. And of course, we all know that healthcare is the number one recipient of virtual world technologies as we've gone into the human body with all sorts of micro technologies and nanotechnologies that are capable of moving throughout all of our body into our cell structure. So virtual worlds are starting to get close to the way we thought they would be when we are moving through data because it's embedded everywhere. You're talking now about people in various research facilities around the world looking at how you upload your consciousness into the internet or into the computer. I'm just starting to read Daniel Dennett. I saw a preview of Jeffrey Hinton's views on large language learning models recently, and I had never heard the name before, Daniel Dennett. But now that I'm starting to read his books, I'm beginning to see that the brain is indeed material, and we are capable of observing it at the fMRI level, and we also are capable of interfacing with a neural network so that we can begin to identify parts of the brain that determine human behavior. I'm at the center of ethics looking at, can we actually find more where morality is located in the human body? And if so, can we have some type of impact on it? Looking at genetic studies of you are predisposed to have certain behaviors based on the way your brain is formed, and starting to make us think about questions. Do we really have free will, or are we predetermined, and are we managed by our environment and our social and cultural experience? This is something that I've been involved in by being in a NSA grant at Portland State University, where we've been looking at the smart grid and looking at how we can not only preserve the smart grid from cybersecurity attack, but looking at how we can utilize small-based personal area networks to bring energy to individual locations around the cities. If we're capable of wiring a city so the whole entire city can be managed through computer networks, then we're going to be able to figure out how to do everything from order groceries to control our heat sources within the houses, to controlling traffic within the cities. Where we have grown with computer vision is quite outstanding. So we should be looking at next generation cities, probably more in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, and some of the places, Singapore, around the world. The United States is not leading in this area right now, but it will be.
And we can have it all.
We can. We've been dreaming about this, what, for 70 years? We've been looking at artificial intelligence, at least the weak version of artificial intelligence, up to this point. But we're just about ready to make this jump into advanced generative interfaces and technology that is capable of deducing from the trillions, that's probably petabytes, of parameters that exist now within artificial intelligence environments.
The conversation rages on.
It really does. And I encourage everybody to continue to talk to me. I'm at two places right now. I'm at the University of Washington teaching the most interesting course called Cyber Ed in a Box. And I'll go to the next slide and talk about that a little bit. Cyber Ed in a Box was designed primarily to look at advancing the number of high level individuals that we can place into jobs within the United States. So, this is an effort that's funded by the Department of Defense, under which sit the National Centers of Academic Excellence in cybersecurity and in cyber research at 440 schools around the country. The programs don't just sit there. You have to verify and certify that you have a program of study in cybersecurity that is comprehensive, that handles all of the technical side of cybersecurity, from network analysis to cryptography, to all of the human factors components of cybersecurity, which is career preparation, identification of your work roles, knowledge of all of the components of cybersecurity, compliance, finance, legal, on and on. Traditionally, we have not been teaching the soft side or the human side of cybersecurity. We've only been teaching the technical side. So I was funded by the NSA and the National Centers of Academic Excellence to combine a program using mixed technologies and mixed educational processes. The goal is to unite industry with its requirements for employability. I'm going to move to a slide that will start calculating what this looks like. And academia, which has the theoretical background, and then government, because they have the standards for what cybersecurity education should look like. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, together with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, have identified 52 plus work roles that are atomized down to the level of exactly what knowledge is needed, what skills are needed for each of these work roles. And these work roles range from analyzing to supplying information. So again, you can see the breadth of work roles that make up cybersecurity. And with the Department of Defense, we're looking at the next generation of competencies that are required for students, especially the reskillers and the upskillers in workforce development, to move into programs that is going to guarantee this marriage between the technical and the human factors side. And let me add one more component to that, even though it's part of human factors, but it's so important to talk about that I'm considering it a third category, which is ethical responsibility for utilizing this technology with a skill set of moral decision making, so that we understand how decisions are made morally, and that we understand how those principles, especially the universal principles of do no harm, are understood not only by the global population through a kind of Geneva Convention for ethics in cybersecurity and the use of technology to fight or to create disinformation or misinformation, but to also try to create that sense of community that we've all been talking about, where we can see really good, virtuous integrity developing within our student body that is working on our cybersecurity network, because we have to be able to trust each other. We have to trust each other at the local government level, at the state level, and at the federal level. And once we do that, we can begin to understand and trust each other multinationally. But this has got to start somewhere. So we've decided to start this at the cybersecurity education level because cybersecurity is about trust, trusting networks, or what I horribly have to call zero trust networks, where nobody gets access to anything until they can prove that they are viable, or that they are virtuous, or that they have integrity. And their aims are to fulfill the society with benefit and productivity. We have to think about this when it comes to AI and the guardrails that we're putting on AI, so we make sure that our super intelligence that we create doesn't start to manifest itself in new ways, such as creating more disinformation and misinformation, or imagine this going into sensors, IoT technology, brain interface technology, and something bad happen. What if we can hack a network? What if we could hack a virtual reality space? Wait, what happens if we can hack the human brain? Wait, I suggested that the brain was material, and if the brain is material and we're linking the brain through neural links, what's stopping us from changing morality at a universal level through some kind of nefarious hacking? So it's imperative, it's the duty of all of us to be thinking about this very seriously. In the courses that we teach, we start with a placement program that is over on the left-hand side called Haystack Solutions. And it's a cognitive assessment test that evaluates how people process information and what their tolerance is for working real time versus an exhaustive search or an exhaustive amount of energy or intellectual horsepower that's required for them to make decisions. And along those two axes, if you can imagine, one axis being the speed at which you operate and making decisions, and the y-axis representing how you make that decisions, whether you're creative and you're very good at seeing patterns and seeing things that nobody else sees, designing and developing in ways. We're probably all high up on the y-axis in creativity, versus the people that are below the x-axis but down on the y hemisphere, where you're looking at people that are really good at responding and adhering to rules and regulations and compliance. We take this test and we determine one more thing: whether people are defensive in their actions for carrying out cyber behavior, or whether they're defensive or offensive. Defensive, obvious. Offensive, meaning that we put lots of guardrails in place to prevent bad things from happening. So, because we have integrated this down to the very atomic or molecular level of what knowledge, skills, abilities, and competencies are needed for each one of these components to ensure trust and integrity, and technical skill and other human factors, we're able to find through artificial intelligence what kind of person is a digital forensic specialist, what particular skill sets, where do they fall on the upper and lower quadrants of offensive and defensive, or on the quadrants of information processing, or individual processing is what I would prefer to call it, for whether you are creative or whether you are a responding type of individual. Then what we do is we give them a baseline of courses and activities in risk management. We found that risk management is probably the thing that needs to be understood in every aspect of every job in cybersecurity. And the students go through that autonomously, whichever word, and they move through the course. But we introduced three other things. We introduce artificial intelligence and chatbotting. You'll actually see some of it integrated into the space that we're going to show you here pretty soon, so that the students have the ability to flex their muscles with vocabulary and concepts and ask those ChatGPT questions where they get a dialogue. If we framed their vocabulary for them and gave them a contextual domain, they can upload all of that assessment material into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT knows what their reference is, what their capabilities are, where their strengths and weaknesses are, where they dominate in spaces that nobody dominates, superpowers, for example. We then start introducing them to mentors from industry. And this is the most exciting part of the program to me, because this is what's always been missing in everything that we've ever tried to do in educational technology. We keep leaving out people, and we keep leaving out the experts that are going to hire you. So we work with this organization called the Cybersecurity Workforce Alliance. It's comprised of 2,400 retired, I used to call this the gray net, individuals who volunteer their time to work with students on real projects. And you'll see us emerging into Second Life in order to start creating real projects where real assets are being created. We're at the very prototype stage because we promised them that it wasn't Second Life that we were going to be building in. It was going to be deep virtual worlds that we know are coming and that are already probably here, but that we were going to be using Second Life as our requirements doc. So instead of having people read these documents, they could come into our space and see what we're talking about. So what you are literally walking through when we get up there is a requirements document and functional design specs. What we do then with the student and the mentor is we start having them deviate from the original baseline content and risk management into their particular area. So if I keep using digital forensics because I found out that's my secret competency that I didn't know that I have one cognitive feature that was identified as seeing anomalies in data before anybody else does. It's really kind of a superpower of mine, and it turns out to be true. So I looked at the requirements, and then I started to associate myself to the digital forensics community. Here in Seattle, it's the Secret Service. And you look at going onto a crime scene, a cybersecurity crime scene, and you start figuring out what is investigation. Well, guess what? You need to have investigatory skill sets in order to be able to do that well. And if you don't fit the bill, the mentor will pick that up fairly soon, especially after having you work with them on different projects with different customers. Let them be the city of Seattle. Let them be a cybersecurity consulting company. Let it be a big deep mind part of Google. But connect these people to cybersecurity expertise and excellence. And then we added one more component into it. This is why I ended up going to Idaho, because the pedagogy that we look at there is the pedagogy of sports. And just didn't see this coming until I met this Russian pedagogue and his wife, a cybersecurity expert. And they were telling me how they use a particular methodology to identify, select, mentor, and then position gold medal winners. How do you train a gold medal winner? Well, first of all, you got to find them. Then you have to assess them. And then you have this other quality that's required is get to know them. So you can see their hunger and you can see that they're over excelling behavior. And you really get an idea of who these top performers are. So when I pitched to the DoD that I was going to create gold medal winners in cybersecurity education through a sports technology that's proven by every football team that you've ever watched or every baseball team you ever watched, because the principles in coaching in sports technology work, and we do actually create gold medal winners. So why can't we use that technology here? So watching the time, because we're going to start our tour in just a second, we then create a group that we call the Cyber 12, And every year we get this Cyber 12 that are the best of the best to compete in a kind of cybersecurity Olympics. And they're competing for top positions in consulting companies or in cybersecurity related companies. Man, the competition is really completely total. And these cybersecurity folks, they're paid. We give them stipends to turn around in the other direction. This is another one of the key factors that really I think is revolutionary. Instead of a teacher and an expert teaching the student, you have peers teach students, just like on the farm. Doesn't matter what you do on the farm, we all keep the farm going. We milk our cows and we put our crop into market. It's the same concept here. Get the students who have the closest proximity to the other person's model of learning and get them to lift each other's boats. Maybe the entry level people are focused simply on vocabulary. Great. Let them participate in the meeting so that they can hear the conversation. Maybe the design meeting so that they're conceptual and they're starting to be able to repeat the vocabulary and over again. Invite them to the design meeting so you can train entry level people all the way up to super gold medal winners in the same exact environment. Eric and I met and decided that it would be really great if we would use virtual worlds to create that sense of community and wrap it around so that we could bring these populations of people together. So if you guys are willing to go see all of this that I'm trying to communicate to you through a slide deck that is kind of not working, but into our virtual world, and then continue conversations with me either at Norwich in Vermont or Avatar at University of Washington, I'll be very happy to have further conversations with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a duck-duck model. Eric's going to be the front duck, and I'm going to be the back duck. And we're now going to move over to CyberX to take a look at how we're starting to manifest these requirements and functional design specs for CyberEd and ABAC. All right.
I'll see you in just a second. I'll get. Welcome. So this is the CyberX facility. This is the entryway. Usually we're starting with participants here and either acclimating to the space, or it's a place that we'll have conferences, and we'll also have the ability to for meetings. You can look around and see a variety of different venues at this level. This isn't really where we do the training, though. This is more where the social collaboration occurs on this level. We'll wait for a few more people to get here, and I'll do that. For those of you who have heard, if you want to take a quick look around, then come back here in a minute or so, and we'll use the teleporter beam in the middle of this sim, and we'll be heading up to another area. And that will be, when we transport, we'll go up to the CyberX Learning, and we'll just use that teleport pad to get up there. So you can take a moment if you want to look inside the conference center and see some of the displays that we have set up, or you can just cam there and stay here, either way you want to do it.
I will be putting my presentation in there as well.
Great. If you have any questions, or if you see anything interesting you want to comment on, we really appreciate the feedback. We're still in really a design phase, so looking for creating improvements. One of the things that you'll see about this facility is that we're right now offering education experiences to students that are designed by us, and we're wanting to change that to have students create the education experiences so that a continuous development process takes place, where students who are coming in determine what the gaps are, what the new components should be, and then begin to design those out. And we can work with the students to do that in a sandbox style development environment. I think things like that are critically important to keep the work alive. Also, in this area, like we were talking about before, there's alumni center and a help desk that would be used during live events. If you come over this way a little bit, you can see where the a teleport pad is. I'll go ahead and start that up, and if you all want to go to the next set, then you can hop on and get there, and I'll join you in just a little bit. Click on one of the teleporter beams. I'll do that a few times, and then join you up there at the CyberX Center, Learning Center. You have to actually click on the beam with your mouse. Okay, so this facility is also still not the simulation area where students will take on those roles and live in direct uh, a direct experience. This is an area that is learning in a different kind of way. Here we're looking at collaborating in front of active resources, live resources on websites throughout the cybersecurity community. And Rand, if I can hand off to you to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, this is the idea of seeing every one of our parts of our course and how we work, each one of the screens being operational. In our course, you can get a certificate from the University of Washington, but also within the same 3 quarters, you can get certificates from EC Council, as you see over there on the left-hand side. And then there's some information here about our cognitive exam, our cyber wallet, which is an object that allows you to track all of your individual competencies and skills that you're acquiring that we hand off to employers. But this is what the experience is like on all of the Cyber Ed in the Box components. So back to you, Eric.
Okay, thanks. So this is a key area for integrating with the overall program, but let's go take a look at some of the actual simulations students will be immersed in. While we have teleports set up throughout the facility, I think walking to get a sense of scale helps. One thing you notice about this facility is it's set up as a series of pods floating in space. This is intended as a psychological prompt for the students so that they realize that while there are lots of experiences and roles available, that they can go into a particular simulation, a particular scenario with a role, And so the pod helps to isolate it, much in the same way that when a member of the USS Enterprise in Star Trek would be going into the holodeck, but this offers a transparent way to do that so we can see all the different options are available. Okay, so let's go and take a look at one of those experiences.
Stay off the rails, Val.
Over to your left, you can see as you come through the door, you can see an instructor guidelines set. And that can help if someone wants to come in and do a class or a component of a class where students become a physical security auditor of a sensitive data facility like this computing center, then you could do that. And then you can come in as a student and just follow these instructions and you'll be doing the actual exercise. So this allows people to experience it without a great deal of prep. Once they come in, they may go to a place like Uxbridge or some of the Second Life learning facilities to learn about how to move around Second Life, what it's about, what to do. And once they have that straight, then they can come here and begin to experience things. If you go through this, you'll see that safety and operations security, access control, business continuity, disaster preparedness, and really determining what level of visibility of the clients or the tenants of the data center would have is critical. Another thing you'll notice about this facility is that there's a light bridge here, and that's also letting the students know that once they pass this point, everything is in scenario after that. And while there are artifacts of simulation that often end up on their reports, the students are required to analyze this facility for this type of security. One thing you'll notice, for instance, is that there's a payphone near the entrance of the building. A payphone like that, you may say, is great, it's convenient, it could be a life safety thing, it could be really handy. But the payphone is also an excuse for a person to loiter near the entrance to a secure facility, to oversee any punch codes that may be going in, to interrupt. If they want to piggyback into the facility, they can be waiting there until somebody shows up, things like that. And so this is one type of a facility we've got that really shows how to analyze a facility and prepare for incidents to occur. Now, you can take a minute and wander through the facility, but after that, we'll go back through that hallway and we'll all take an elevator down. Actually, it'll be faster if we use the teleport. It's a large group. So I think if we're going to go to the next location, let's do that instead. But if you want to take a quick look through the facility and see what's been going on, feel free to do that. And we can take a couple of minutes and then we'll head to the other facility, which is in the elevator at the on level 1. We're on level 2 now.
I wanted to point out, Eric, that the reason that we got attracted to working with each other is because we both had assets that we could speed build this environment. I think we started building it about 2 months ago with a small budget and just one additional designer. Some of you may know Emerson from our former class, being a teaching assistant. But being able to leverage Eric's work and my work in the same space, we could accelerate the development in the environment. That's why you see this kind of old Second Life technology, or at least appearance of textures and things, and then you see some more modern looking things. But remember, we weren't designing this as a space yet. This is a business document to kind of get an idea of what's required.
Right, and this particular facility was designed with Vincent Nestler and some others at Idaho State. And there's a paper published on it. If you're interested, let me know, and I can follow up after the tour. So now we're going to take another quick look at what happens after the incident occurs. We're going to look at a forensic crime scene where a murder has been committed in a similar facility. So I'll see if we can use this transporter to get us there quick.
And this is
Just
a
go ahead
great
and hop on the
opportunity.
beams and it'll take you down. We will not need to take the elevator.
This is a great opportunity to talk about partnering with Val to create a
Okay.
Did you hear that plug, Val?
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm
So-
listening.
So here we are at a similar looking facility, but you'll notice that things are different. First of all, we have Officer Kowalski here at the beginning, and if you talk to him in open chat, you'll get some comments about warrants and other things that may be involved in crime scenes. This officer is using an ELIZA chatbot, and all the code resides right in the object here in Second Life. Looking around, you can see also over here, Officer Sam is a very different kind of officer. This is a chatbot using GPT chat or chat GPT, and you can see right here, if you use the name, then the officer can come up and talk with you.
Eric, for those people who may not know, can you explain the difference between ELIZA, which really was born around the 1960s, and then ChatGPT, just so they get the difference between the models?
Okay. Yep. So you can see Officer Sam replying to me right there.
And this is that when I was telling you, put in your role. Actually, I want the role attached to your body so that it detects you with your CATA, this assessment that is formed, so it knows what your knowledge is, it knows what your context is, and can read that before it answers your question.
Right. That's exactly where we want to go with this. So inside of Officer Sam here processing locally is a bio of who Officer Sam is, should be, and the behavior characteristics. But there's the ELIZA bot that we were looking at on the other side of this data center is programmed with looking for keywords in the speaker's phrases and picking a random reply for that in a set of those keywords. So it's a very small range of things that Officer Kowalski could do, but Officer Sam is the full range of things that GPT chat can do. So you can play with it, but one big difference for us functionally is that Officer Kowalski is much better at giving specific directions. What do I need to do? What do I do with this warrant? And what is the limit of this scenario, or something like that? Whereas Officer Sam, you can have extended discussions in more of a mentor-like role, but because of the ambiguities in the bio, it's less able to provide specific instructions or specific answers. If you go inside the facility, you can see the crime scene. There's a dead body underneath the sheet, the bloody sheet. There's evidence, but particularly our students would be looking for these cyber forensic data to gather. Is there a little USB? Are there security fobs? Are there laptops? What are the things that might have been involved in this crime scene that could help us figure it out? And that would include looking back into the data center for things that may have been inadvertently placed there or inappropriate, looking at the basement, looking at the roof, or looking in containers and things nearby. We can take a quick look around, but if you check out the shipping containers and other things, you'll notice that some inappropriate things have been happening. I just opened the door on that out to our left. I mean, as you come out of the door, it'll be on your right side around the building, you can see. But yeah, there's been a lot of things going on in this data center that are inappropriate. And the students in the cyber forensics class at St. Martin's have already been through this, and as well as the Veterans to Technology program at St. Martin's. So, but students just recently, but students have gone through these types of exercises from several universities around the U.S. and around the world. Okay, so this is a very different from some of the other scenarios. These can be done more individually, but they can also be done in groups. If you have any questions, maybe we'll pause here as I get the transporter ready. But I think one other thing I've been seeing is that in cybersecurity in particular, many of the workshops and exercises and laboratory experiences that students do are isolating experiences. And people say, are kids who are into technology more introverted? I think a better answer would be is we often train students to behave professionally in an introverted way by creating isolating labs. We'll go to an experience now that is much more oriented towards creating a collaborative experience. This lab is designed for 30 students maximum, but it does work with as little as 4. Here we have a very different experience. So students work together in teams of 3 on each station, and they start with the leftmost console. And you can click on these to see exactly what the students would be getting. If you click, for instance, if you're on the NOC Analyst Senior, and you click there, you can see what a NOC analyst would be saying. And as the cybersecurity person here, we know we're trying to deconvolute the issues we're having here. We have hairpinning going through the firewall. We have core spoke network design. We're seeing some new protocols spike today, including 137. So students have to figure out, dang, what does that even mean as a cybersecurity person when they're really talking to an analyst, a network operations center analyst who's trying to use their own language. And then students go through a round of that. They have to talk in their team, and they have to be able to speak up to talk to the entire room when they need to, and also to be able to block out the noise.
Yeah.
So after a round of that, then they go to the second round in the middle, and then they go to the third round on the right, and hopefully they resolve the issue. They find out if it's cybersecurity, or perhaps it was just an operations problem that caused this today, and there were no malicious hackers trying to get in. But
Yeah, pretty cool.
so if you look above, you can see there's also an executive role. The CIO is involved here. The CEO can come in, and other executives into the room, and they also have prompts that are coming from their constituents to interact with this scene.
Ground to kind of simulate that idea of what's it like to be in this place when all these conversations are going on. And I noticed how you, like a bat, you stopped talking a little bit so you could hear what I was saying.
Yes, that's big. Yeah, and also the distance we have between us when the group is together, making sure they're huddling and talking low enough so that they're not disrupting the room, and yet when they need to speak up, they can do it. This Second Life audio is really good for simulating an actual knock experience. It's partly called, that's why it's called the signal noise problem. What are you listening to? What should you be blocking out mentally as or just having as a potential interrupt? And this is an area of work I'd like to do if you're in communications theory and know the concept of transactional distancing and would like to work on that. I'd be very interested.
And I would be interested in anyone who also wants to work in Second Life with us, because we're operating to prove proof of concept, which we'll have done by August. And then if it really gets sold, then we get the big bucks to start taking us to the next level.
Yeah, and even if you just have students you want to run through these experiences, I can help out with that. And we really like to collect survey data, not for scientific publications, so there's no IRB, but just to improve the facility. It's operations surveys to help us make the work better, much like a student survey that can help improve a course. Okay, we can go on to another facility.
I just got a message in the background, and I am very approachable, you guys. I work with students most of the time, and I'm a student myself. And feel free to contact me. I really will respond. I'm that kind of a guy.
Oh, sorry. Just a second. I'm trying to get us to the right facility. This is the glass cage scenario. So we're all going to the glass cage scenario. Okay, we already have somebody going through the secret door. Okay. So as we let it res in a little bit, this is an interesting space. If you look around, and it's very different from the spaces we've seen before. No, don't go through the secret door. I guess everybody's moving this way. We'll all kind of head this direction a little bit. I just want to make sure people can hear me. But if you come through this door, we're in front of a foreign bureau. So this is the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, and it's not a twin of the actual U.S. Embassy, but it's just a placeholder for calling this particular foreign bureau. But one interesting thing you see here is that we're for all those of you who are in Second Life long term, if you can cam way back outside of this building, then you'll notice that we're inside a glass office tower, and that we're surrounded by glass office towers. And let's just walk over this way and see what that does. Sorry about that. We can see that in a glass office tower, we can still maintain some security, and that in a lobby like this, we're limiting traffic that would go through more sensitive areas by having a service window and by having multi-factor authentication on the main doors to go into the office areas. So even though checking for arms and things emitting RF radiation or things like that, we now can go into this office space here and see that this is a more secure area. And that's a great thing. We've got a conference room over here where people can have meetings with a greater confidence that they won't be interrupted, that there aren't going to be bugs planted here or things like that nearly as much, because we've controlled traffic. So students have to learn about these processes and make recommendations for operations. Now, for those of you who have been in Second Life for a while, an interesting thing to do would be to cam across the street to that building you see over there with the glass towers. I'm going to click on that building, and if you look in it, I've taken away the window tinting right now, and you can see that there's some operations. Something's going on over there. Do you see that? Who is that person, and what is that equipment? Yes. Well, we don't necessarily know Russian, right? But what we do know is that there are some people over there with high gain antennas and telescopes and analytic equipment, all kinds of things looking right at us. So this provides only a certain level of security to be in a place like this, even with all the security we've been through. And all that other security is still necessary, but perhaps we need another level. So if you all, I'm going to just bump by everybody here, so apologies in advance. But we're going to go back the other way. Sorry, Max. Here we go. And we're going to head back where we were into another kind of room. This is
Eric, I got to tell you, you never stop learning, because this is where I really became aware of the glass cage. I read about it, but it never affected me like when I looked over there and saw someone staring at me behind tinted
Right.
windows.
It's a big mindset to be able to address things like this. So everybody, please put your cell phones in the little lockers on the left before we proceed. And the officer here can scan you with the wand to make sure there's no RF emitting devices or anything additional, not just the checking for weapons. Then we wait in a space like this for our meeting to begin. You can see for safety reasons, we have to have exits on the building, but they're one way. And right here, there's a SCIF, security vestibule for information protection. And the SCIF has several components to it. One is it can detect if something's coming in like a drill or something like that. Also, it's got soundproofing. It has a Faraday cage wall, which protects it. Even here, we're still going to have another guard having confidential discussions before the final entry into the space. But now we're into a conference room where we can have a private discussion. Say the ambassador is talking to the president about a sensitive situation. And here you can see we're in a place where even though we don't know who's the tenant above, even we have to assume they're all operatives looking to understand what we're saying below, or perhaps even in the suite next door. So this gives us a different sense of that, the ability to really have more of a confidential space in which to operate. So now you've seen kind of the levels any foreign bureau has, and when you think about the budgets that people put into having an embassy or a consulate or an office, something like that, then you begin to understand the confidentiality levels that are required. We don't want to get rid of the offices out there. Even the office pointing right towards the glass can be valuable for social events, and we'd use that space, but just not for the levels of sensitivity. That's why levels are classified, and this gives you also a good sense of how we walk through different levels of classification for data protection and how that works.
Let me ask a question to you all while you're sitting here. So in chat, give me a percentage. If you were in a skiff like this, how secure do you think you are in terms of cybersecurity information? What percentage of safety do you feel now that you've gotten rid of your cell phone? There's a Faraday cage in the walls. There's no cameras in here. In chat, tell me how safe you feel. Now, why do you feel that way, Chris? And why do you feel 50% safe? See, the reason that she might be saying that is because she might be what we call an insider threat. Something that you haven't thought about is infiltration inside of a group that looks so innocent. So that concept of zero trust that I talked about, we have to maintain it in cybersecurity until we're really sure who everybody is. Anyway, I wanted to point out just a sense of what it's like to be in a place like this so that you critically think about it. Eric.
Yes, that's it. And so you're right that there are actually a lot of other protocols outside of the physical controls we're looking at that would be involved in creating the secure environment. And none of those is really foolproof. Okay, so now that you've seen this space, another thing to realize is that outside of this is Tokyo. And some of you may have been on a tour like this before, but I'll tell a little story as we get back here to our teleport point.
Right. One of Val's old jobs, dancing on tables.
Okay, so
Through the
be
door.
careful here. We're going to take a quick turn to the right and walk through a secret door. So if you see people wondering where it is, this is where we go.
There we go.
We're going to go to selection number 6, Little Tokyo.
Eric, how realistic is this that these walls are so close to each other and you
Okay. So I'd been doing this the glass cage scenario for a long time, but when COVID hit, the outside of the building was initially just a random foreign country that was never named. But my wife teaches Japanese at Metro State University in Denver, and she used to teach the street directions course where students would have to go around and find things in Little Tokyo in Denver. And when that happened, she had to teach completely online and wasn't able to bring the students to the streets. So after COVID hit, we turned this random foreign city into Tokyo. And so that she could both teach the Japanese language course of street directions and things like that here, as well as I would be teaching inside the embassy the security course.
We're in Little Tokyo now. This must be chaos for the guy who's doing the filming.
Okay, so we just needed to pick up a few more people there. So you can see that disciplines that are really varying quite a bit are able to come together in a space like this for the experience. In addition, as you wander around this place, there are a lot of cultural activities to do for the students. There's a theater where they sometimes the Japanese club comes and watches movies and things like that. But also they learn about classroom etiquette, and where Max is heading is right where we should go to start maybe, is in this classroom. So students come over here and get a very different kind of virtual world experience. Here the classroom is actually part of the experience. So you can see this is what a typical Japanese classroom would look like. And there's a board here that found for drawing. If I can just get something on the board here. You can see I can draw kanji on the whiteboard to the right. There's instructions on the other boards. And these ones are using the web on a prim. And you can actually, these are interactive Google Docs that are used to control the class. So one interesting thing about this is that in the environments where you were previously, we can also use the web on a prim in order to control other virtual computers, like computers that may have been hacked, or servers, or computers on a virtual network in the cloud, so that students can be interacting in the social way with their students in the Network Operations Center or someplace like that, and yet still working on computers that they share the interface for in this world. For us, that's a big avenue of extended development, is creating these types of environments that have fully computer-supported systems, and so that you can go and look for those types of things, or those types of computer experiences, which before might have been isolating experiences, can now be collaborative experiences. So this is our Japanese classroom right here.
And in cybersecurity, speaking foreign languages is really critical. So almost all of people in cybersecurity here picking up Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Arabic.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so let's travel just a little bit more, and we can show you some of the. I'll show you actually how a tour or a treasure hunt works. You'd get a set of instructions here, and then let's go back out. As you leave here in Japanese, the instructions would say left, right, forward, back, something like that, or go past the gas station and turn right. Students would have to interpret all that in Japanese. And then they would finally end up somewhere. Let's find a place they would end up. So the students might end up at a shop like this, and then you'll see inside a festival booth. And there you can see yakisoba, and you take a yakisoba, and you get it like this. Can you see my yakisoba in my hand? Tastes pretty good. Yeah. So if you've been hungry on this tour, I totally understand. This one comes with a fried egg on top. And you're welcome to the food. But the interesting thing is now, I take this yakisoba, and I'm not saying where I went necessarily, but I can take that treasure, and the professor can confirm that the student has accurately followed the instructions. And all the student teams have different places they're going. So they're not all going to the same place. And then they can follow those instructions and get where they need to go. And get confirmation. And then once they bring back the right treasure, then they can go find the next thing. And before long, if they haven't learned how to detach objects, then they're all carrying a whole bunch of stuff around. But that's the general experience. I think I will detach my yakisoba, as good as it is.
So, Eric, start lecturing to us in Japanese.
Yeah, I can do that, but my Japanese is not as good. If there are native Japanese speakers here, then yeah, my Japanese is not the best. けれども、私は日本語を話せますね. So yeah, let's go on to the next.
Oh, good.
So other type of experiences are really important in the Japanese culture too. So in the classes, in order to maintain attention, focus, topic of conversation, and these come up in all kinds of ways. So let's go on to the next location here, and I can talk about some of these types of experiences.
There's some people eating their yakisoba. They're not moving.
That's right. We've lost them to the food. So usually at the end of a class, then we have the students come here. If it's their first time in this space, then there are all different kinds of festival booths here they can try out that have games involved. And there's also, they can do the Obon dance, and this is an Obon dance tower. And we play music here for the appropriate festival. We won't do that right now because there's more to show you, but that's usually one thing we do. For instance, there's fireworks, and we'll go on to some other things that the students can actually do.
And this reinforces when you combine efforts. This is where I think we're going to go in Second Life next, is start utilizing each other's environments to broaden our capabilities within the environment. So it's not going to be a surprise to see 80 people anymore in the environment.
So here we've got student or some artwork. So the gallery can have different kinds of exhibits in it. There's a place they can, over here, there's the Museum of Japanese Musical Instruments. They can hear the actual sounds of things like a shakuhachi or a koto, shamisen, instruments like that. Here is a theater, and This, you may all recognize this theater from many builds in Second Life. And as you see the theater, you'll understand that the Japanese Language Club can come here and practice or really watch movies together. As long as something that is open source and available without copyright, the students can come in and watch clips and hang out together as part of their experience. Over here, if you want to explore, there's karaoke, which you can use using the same web on a prim technique and some animations. There's 2 karaoke booths, so students can do that. Karaoke, by the way, the Japanese word comes from kara as in karate, which means empty hand, but karaoke means empty orchestra. That's the oke in orchestra. So it's like you have the orchestra, but the primary voice is missing. On the left is a purikura, and that is a place that groups of students can take pictures together in a photo booth and change the foreground and background in order to get a fun shot. Okay, as we keep going, there's all kinds of things the students can pick up along the way, like traditional food in the farmhouse there. They can get kibidango. There's a fun song about that. The students would learn in different classes, but they'll recognize it when they get here as a reinforcement. We're going to another place that we can do some other things. So for instance, here's one of, if you look here, there's one of the hidden festival booths they have to find. There's archery if you go up, but we're going upstairs. So for some of you that have explored SL more broadly, you know that there are lots of things in the real world that you can do and learn and understand really identically in the virtual world. And on the floor you see a game called shogi. It's a traditional Japanese game. And with the instructions there in English and Japanese, this guides students through the process of playing the game shogi. So they can play actual games here and watch others play games. There's also Go. If you know the game Go, then that's also possible for students to be doing in this space. Not this particular room, but if you wander around the old quarters of Tokyo, you'll find in one of the rooms, second-story rooms, that you could also have a group of friends play Go there. So all this shows you that it's really not just for us cybersecurity, that we're trying to explore a lot of different methods and modes of learning or reinforcement of knowledge, but also mindset development, awareness, and understanding or appreciation, and the behaviors of collaboration and skills that can really help them explore and learn the world or the field they happen to be in. I know you all are an amazing group that do a lot of that, and I have to thank you all for being out there, and many of you have helped me in like discovering ideas and principles in this virtual world where we're doing things like that, and that have contributed to, you know, even like the work that I do here on these kinds of builds. So I really just appreciate the community and glad to have the opportunity to share it a little bit.
We were meeting yesterday with some educational technologists that go way back to the 60s, and they saw this environment probably, if any of you remember or have heard of Play-Doh, when you were out creating every single component of this way back in the 60s and 70s. And they see the potential of it. They're loving where we're at and how far we've come. But they were interested, and I would like to get the dialogue going around this. They're interested in the fact that maybe you can get too distracted in here. I mean, look how many messages I had to put out to get people to follow us, because they're all over the place now. How do you keep the objectives clear so that when you come into the learning environment, the students are learning what you want them to learn, and they're not just free ranging like chickens on a farm. Has anyone got any thoughts on that? I encourage talking out loud, being an instructor for so long.
Or comments in the chat are good too.
Yeah, both places are multiple threads of communication. And Eric, talk a little bit about what we're thinking about in terms of not having students just consume the area, but prosume the area. So we start moving into this idea of getting students to create content in these environments to help the other students learn at their level.
Yeah, I think that one thing that we're doing is breaking up this space a little bit so that we can have different permissions, so that we can offer assurance that some exercises will be ready to go for when a university wants to just jump in and start using them. And other places are for more creative capstone or student project or other type of work where students want to create an environment and have students in theirs or other classes run through and experience it. So it gives the students a much deeper understanding of the teaching to learn principle, things like that. Hey, Carl made a great point about the blue pill or red pill, and I feel like we have different groups that come in, but some really just say, this is a game, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to change my clothes a dozen times as you're talking, and continuously things like that, where they're literally just wandering off because for them it doesn't equate with a serious event. And I think Val's idea of scaffolding learning is also big, and I think that relates to what Bruce was saying, and also the idea of minimizing the initial visual response is getting the skills that build up to make it work. Thank you also, Sumoon, for your comments, yeah, thanks for being here. I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something to Val, but I'd rather hear you talk because I know what I think.
It's Val's comment that I was looking at. The balance between exploration and creation is big. Yeah, and I think it does create that challenge. So what
I was going to say is Vygotsky's work just came out. Somebody wrote a PhD dissertation. They found his work in Russia, and they translated it all at some university here in the United States. And there's a big dialogue going around it now. I myself am a hardcore Vygotsky fan, working my way up to Bandura and social learning. And then, of course, some of the things that we've discovered here as a community from the stuff that Val's doing and you're doing and Max has done. Max was my very first experience in Second Life, looking at her chem lab. And it's just amazing how far we've come, but we still have further to go, if you all agree with me.
Yeah, a lot of really good comments. And thanks, Ellie. I agree. The starting small and building. It's interesting to see how that pace can ramp up so rapidly sometimes. To me, when we're in environments like this, you invite a student in and they say, I want to make my own right away. Or other ones are saying it's going to take a while. I'm not sure what I'm thinking here. Yeah. So I read an interesting study of a professor who went through one of the experiences, the first experience that you had, and he actually did a separate study where he just took the posters of cybersecurity information and just put those posters in the virtual world. That was it. And he presented the posters to the students on a web page and in a virtual world. That alone made the students remember more and understand more and be able to reply to questions more. Just that. It was very, very interesting. That was a group of students from the United Arab Emirates.
Val, do you have a library anywhere that has an Eric-like resource to it? Not you, Eric. The educational resources that brought me to the University of Washington in the first place.
Many different many different databases. We've got them at the community virtual library, especially for people who are behind university walls and they can't get in because maybe they've retired or they're no longer a student there. So we have some at the community virtual library. And we'll be putting those at the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium, because what you two are doing here with this collaborative work, that's exactly what the consortium is all about. We're here to support your work and share resources on how to find, the research that's coming out on the metaverse and AI and cybersecurity and everything you're talking about.
That's fantastic. It's just amazing how far you've come. Not you, but the community as well that surrounds you. It's just, I'm pretty amazed by it, and I was honored to be able to come in and speak today. Have the opportunity to share some of my thoughts. I love how that you've minimalized a lot of the environment, so you've removed that whole shackle of buildings and corridors and stairs. Just not needed. What's needed is access to information and opportunity for interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really agree. I think can we cue them to the right experiences and not bring our old modes with us that may not be necessary anymore. Hey, Peter made a question, is that have anyone devirtualized things? I've had two projects that were devirtualized. So one was a project I did that is not in this build, designing a security education center in a virtual world. And I designed that in the virtual world, and then Regis University actually made that building happen. So once that we had designed the structure and we had a bunch of faculty and students go through it and experience learning in the virtual space, they actually bought a floor of a high-rise and built it. And that was very amazing to see happen. If you ever see anything like that, it's a very strange experience to walk through a virtual space and then to have that same sensation walking through the real space. Another one that is in this build is the classrooms. And while we didn't go to those classrooms here, you can use the teleporter to get to it. And that experience, the virtual world classrooms proved out the concepts to a bunch of executives at a school district that had 40,000 kids, and those classrooms were used as the model to renovate all the classrooms in the school district over time. A lot of the ideas that came out of there. Go ahead.
What does devirtualize mean?
I think devirtualize means you've built something in Second Life, and then you find that it gets built in real life. But let me hand it off to Peter, who's the one who asked that question. We'll look for your...
Exactly.
Yeah, those are not written up. I probably should do a paper on that because, yeah, I think that move is going to happen more and more and more. That things built in virtual... Well, we already know this, that CAD is where we... So, okay, there is a paper that I wrote that talks about how things move on the virtualization grid, and I may be able to give you a link to that, Peter. This was used in particular for paper in the conference on cyber warfare. And it talks about how many things can, if something moves on what I created as a spectrum of virtualization, then security reassessment needs to be done for a variety of reasons. And at least it could offer some context for the particular cases that I described.
Yeah, thank you, pandemic, for making us push ourselves into the virtual world. And the virtual world's not just a 3D environment like this. It's also our telephones and our X files and any other place that we're consuming information together. The same principles hold true when you gather the hive mind together. I do think that we need to stop talking about how this compares to the classroom, because we've already demonstrated in the last couple of years that the classroom is really an unnecessary artifact of our past way of thinking. And I'm so grateful that we don't find ourselves locked into it anymore, but that we can start exploring some of these other technologies and accelerate our learning outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's right. That would also make a great paper. Actually, maybe these are all chapters in a book we should be looking at.
Ooh,
And
I like
get
that.
this group
Have
here
a-
to help out.
That's a good idea. You know, I've got this book that we wrote called The Oxford Handbook of Virtuality. And it was very philosophical when it was born. The Oxford series, has a nice shelf life. But I think that we've accelerated so quickly in what we used to call distance learning that it's time to bring some very smart minds together again and maybe capture where we're at so that we can inform the community what we want as they develop solutions for us.
Yes. And that also means that maybe at some point, as Peter was suggesting, classrooms in the real world will also become no longer necessary. That the learning behaviors we find here, we'll just find are better. And that we take that back to the real world and we design our buildings and systems to better support students.
Okay, Val, are we friends? That's I want that book. I need a signed copy immediately. Just saw what it cost. I think also that we have to understand that the Zoomers, I love to call us boomers and Zoomers, our kids, they have a different way of consuming knowledge. And they've also developed an attitude about our inability to be there for them to supply that knowledge or to supply those experiences. So they're starting to bypass us. Stepping on the heads of digital immigrants is kind of the way I'm suggesting it. You can take any person today and say, how do I fix the carburetor in my 1989 Cherokee? And within about 20 minutes, you have a really good idea of what to order, where everything is located, and what the opportunities are for analyzing what's going on with it. And you can actually accomplish doing it. But where's all of the technology that's on our face and our fingertips that accelerates that video into action? That's where we need to head. We need to be thinking about embedding technology in our perceptive environment, our hands and our ears and our eyes, and think about ways we can work more closely with the objects in our world rather than recreate virtual worlds when it would be just so much easier to go into the city of Seattle and start reconstructing it so that the whole thing is digital and we create digital twins. I don't know if any of you are looking at digital twinning right now, but it is the recreation of the physical world into the virtual world at multiple levels, including all network experiences, and looking at how artificial intelligence is accessing all the databases in the world and giving you specific information based upon that analysis. So I think we need to double step on how we're thinking about learning and with educational technology.
Hey, those are really great points to end on. I want to thank everyone for being here, and especially thank you, Rand, for being our speaker today and for guiding us through that the historical process, the dream, and the technology state where we're currently at. Just really glad to have you as part of our expert series.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Val, and thank you, Eric. You're just an extraordinary partner. I really enjoy working with you and all of the people here that I know. The rest of you, please befriend me and don't hesitate to contact me through my contact information. See y'all later.